Welcome to the GoldenComm podcast. I have special guests with me, Richard Dunn. D-U-N-N. Richard Dunn, done right. You know when you've been done right. Hey, thanks for coming to the show. Really appreciate you joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is great. What an honor and a privilege.
Well, I can't wait to introduce you to the audience here. Richard Dunn has been a friend of mine for a decade. More than that. We probably met more than 10 years ago. But for at least 3 decades, you have been covering sports in the Orange County community. And is that true?
Yes, it's funny because we had just mentioned that it's actually 4. So
four decades.
Four decades.
Yeah, because so for those of you that don't know Rich Dunn, he worked at the Daily Pilot in the sports. Tell me about that.
I was 19 years old when I started as a stringer at the Daily Pilot.
A stringer.
A stringer is a part-timer covering high school football and high school basketball games. And, you're cutting your teeth, getting your feet wet, out there learning how to do it, how to cover a game, how to keep stats, how to keep a log, how to interview coaches and players, and, how to prepare before a game, show up early and talk to the coach and make sure the roster's accurate, the numbers are accurate, the kids are spelled right. Anybody missing? Any new guys from JV called up? I mean, that way, so in the middle of the game, who's number 36, he's not on your roster, and he's there. So,
You have no idea how interesting this is to me. So there's so many skills involved in that. Which is one of the things I want to talk about, all the things that you've done since you've turned 19 and started this. I mean, these skills transfer into sports, but a million other things, right? But one of the things that is really interesting about watching you watch a game is how you keep stats. Let's say I go to a football game with you. You have a piece of paper, and by the end of the game, you can tell me what the quarterback's numbers were, what the running back's numbers were, what you have all that, and you didn't have a computer with you. You just watched the game. How do you do that?
Well, you have to really focus and pay attention. That's for sure. You can't miss any plays because there's no replays in a high school football game, and a lot of times.
Okay, you're being modest. I've seen to me, it looks like Greek.
Yeah, so, I covered some volleyball. Well, every sport, and you have your own way of doing it and your own technique, if you will, and somebody referred to it as it looks like hieroglyphics, which kind of it does in a way, because it's just numbers and little signs. Instead of a kill, you don't spell out kill in volleyball, just put a K. Touchdown, you don't spell it out, just put TD. But you have a log where you keep every play, first down, 12, circle the quarterback, pass complete to 84 to the yard line, boom, second down. And then you have a stat sheet where you keep, of course, all the passing, receiving, rushing, individual breakdowns, plus all the team first downs, return yardage, fumbles, interceptions, punt returns, whatever it may be. So, it's people don't realize the amount of statistics that go into keeping a football game, or in this case, a high school football game. At the Daily Pilot, for many years, we had a big box score that had all the information in there. They don't do that anymore. It's different now. Things have been scaled back in the newspaper world. It's not as detailed or expanded as it was when I first broke in. So
the Daily Pilot, how long were you there?
Well, I was there 24 years. I became the sports editor eventually. When I was a young cub reporter at age 21, a senior in college, I was very fortunate to get the opportunity to start covering the major leagues, the Angels, the Rams, USC, UCLA football. So it was quite an eye-opener. If we got a moment, I'm covering the Angels, and I grew up with I was a big fan of Reggie Jackson and Rod Carew and these guys that were on the Angels, and I was very wide-eyed, as you can imagine. But I needed to be professional, and you have to keep your wits about you and do your job. And so I was able to do that. One day, so we're covering Reggie Jackson, who I loved growing up. He's pursuing his 500th career home run. So there's a lot of attention on him, and everything he does is scrutinized. So there was one day in the summer, it was in August, just a couple of weeks before he broke the record. And I walk into the Angels clubhouse. Nobody else was in there. And I was walking through the clubhouse to get through the tunnel down into the dugout and onto the field where we get our notes and during batting practice and talk to players. But I walk into the clubhouse and Reggie Jackson is in there naked and listening to the Ghostbusters song, bouncing up and down, his monsters flapping up and down. I just turned really quickly and kept walking. It was uncomfortable for me, but it was interesting. And so that was a moment in time that I'll never forget. It's in the book. It was a chapter called Halo Heroes, and it's about my coverage of the Angels, particularly as a young reporter, as a Cub reporter, and really being wide-eyed and at that time. But it was an honor and a privilege to be able to cover USC football, UCLA football, Rams, Angels, Dodgers, World Series playoffs, and it was quite a time.
Well, you alluded to this book. It's called Press Pass Paradise.
Yes.
I've read, I think, most of the books that you've published, and you're a terrific writer.
Thank you.
By the way.
Thank you.
On top of being a great statistician and keeping track of just the first downs, you also have a great way of crafting very interesting, I feel like I was there stories. So I want to compliment you on that.
Thank you.
But you also mentioned Rod Carew. Tell me about the movie tickets.
Because
I read that chapter in here.
Yeah, well, I used to be a assistant manager at the Cinedome Theater in Orange, which at the time was probably the biggest movie theater in Orange County.
The Cinedome.
Cinedome Theater.
I remember. I saw Rocky 3 there.
Yeah.
It was like a real fight.
Star Wars, Rocky.
All
so
it
had big lines, and all the big, feature films were there, and it was a fun job. It was something I did when I was in college. I had a couple of part-time jobs. I was a stringer at the paper. I worked at the movie theater. So anyhow, this is during the strike in '81, and I noticed Carew was at the front door with his family. There was about 7 or 8 of them. And so I reached out to him and introduced myself and welcomed him in and asked him what movie he'd like to go see. And of course, he was all in the house. Where would you like to sit? Got him some popcorn, and he was he has his sunglasses on. He always did, and he was thrilled about that. And so at the time, he goes, "Well, anytime you want some Angel tickets, let me know." So, and we took him up on that a couple of times. So we had this exchange, movie passes for Angel tickets, and just give me a couple of days, and I'll set you up.
That's
so
terrific.
we did that. There was one time, however, where it was a Sunday day game, and we didn't have tickets. We actually hope we have time to do this. I called him on a payphone. This is a half hour before the game. I call him on a payphone from outside the stadium, and I asked for the clubhouse guy, and he's the one in charge of taking care of things for the players. Yeah, is Rod there? Well, no. Can I leave a message for him? This is Rich Dunn. We're looking for some tickets for today's game. Yeah, hold on a minute. So I hold on a minute. He comes back. You're all set. We'll call. Oh, great. Okay. So we got those tickets.
That worked also.
For that day. Yeah, it was pretty good. When I started covering the team in '84 as a young reporter, Rod looks at me. We're in the Angels clubhouse, and he gives me this look like, "Hey, Rich, come on over here." And he puts his arm around me, and he goes, "Hey, good to see you, but don't get that poison pen." He kind of had a rough relationship with the members of the press, especially in Minnesota when he was younger. But that's a whole other story. But I remember him saying that to me, and it was wonderful. We had a great relationship, and I had a great time covering the team, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, Rich, this is perfect. So this book, when I picked it up, I realized that I could really go to any page in this book. And here I am right here. And I am in a longer chapter. This is called The Best Kept Secret in the NFL, chapter 15. This I remember is about Coach Mike Giddings.
Yes.
Yeah. And what's neat is I just pick it up and open it, and I don't need to have read the previous 14 chapters to understand what's going on in chapter 15. And really, I can do that for any of these chapters, and they're all about local sports, or 90% of it is about local sports. Yeah. And so you're like a walking storyteller of everybody who's picked up a bat, did a cartwheel, rowed a canoe, scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
And you have just this uncanny ability to tell stories just on the spot like that. I imagine that groups would be interested in you coming out to their party and just fielding questions. Is that happening to you?
Yes, we've had a few of those, and they're a lot of fun. Yeah, I have a good time with it. The book is a collection of essays and features and profiles and spot reporting, which is basically items taken from the past that I've covered. For example, the 1988 World Series Game 1, where Kirk Gibson hit the game-winning home run.
It's in here. Yep.
Many years ago, the LA Times voted that as the #1 sports moment in Southern California history. The MLB network has actually placed it as the #1 moment in their opinion, in baseball history. I almost missed it. I almost missed that home run. I was up in the auxiliary press box with my editor. I'm sitting right next to Roy Firestone on my left, and my editor, Roger Carlson, is on my right. We're watching the game, and my job was to cover the Oakland A's, do a sidebar on the Oakland A's, no matter what happens. But at Dodger Stadium is an old stadium. There's only one elevator that goes down from that level down to the locker room, for the interview room, and the clubhouses. And that one small elevator can get really, really crowded, especially when there's packed journalism, hundreds and hundreds of media members and press. And they all want to get down at the same time after the game. So what many reporters do is they leave early, before the bottom of the ninth starts, or before even the ninth inning starts. They'll take the elevator down and get a nice, comfortable seat down in the interview room or the clubhouse and watch the game on the monitor, that's fine. That's great. That's why they do that, so they don't have to deal with the big crowd. So it's Gibson's coming up to hit, and my boss wants to go down the elevator and beat the crowd. And so this was my talk about. I said no. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay there and watch the game until the end. I mean, you can, but so I was lucky that I stood my ground, and we saw Gibson hit the home run, and I'll never forget him going around second base. Yeah, pumping his. My good buddy at the time was a big hockey fan, and he would say that hockey players would do that. And so when I first remember watching Gibson do that, I thought, wow, that's interesting, because I've never seen a baseball player do that. That's what hockey players do. So it was obviously an impactful moment. At the time, of course, it was awesome, and I'm glad I didn't miss it. And so that's my little story about covering the Kirk Gibson and the World Series in '88.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Real quick, since I mentioned it, tell me about the NFL's best kept secret. That's the Giddings coach.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You did a nice piece on it here, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, really well done.
Thank you. Yeah, most of it is locally based. There's Angels and some Rams in there. But Giddings, of course, coached at Newport Harbor for a number of years, was very successful. But his, as you know, I think you've had him on your podcast here as well. But Coach Giddings started Pro Scout, which is an evaluation service, a pro player evaluation service for NFL teams. When he was a coach for the 49ers in the early 70s, they realized that they didn't have this type of information. Hey, if somebody gets hurt, where do we go? Who do we see? We can't draft somebody. We can't take him out of college. We don't really know who's available. What's the market like? And this is before free agency. So long story short, he created his Pro Scout business, which became very successful since 1977. And his son, who you know, Mike Jr., runs it up there in the Park City area. And so his whole spiel was to keep it a secret. He didn't publicize it, didn't talk about it, never got quoted. He goes, that's what keeps us successful, is by keeping it a secret, and only the teams that are our clients get this information. So he would use colors and numbers and different logos to identify these players, and it's still going on today, and Coach Giddings created it. And so in the chapter, he's the best kept secret in the NFL, who John Turney at Pro Football Journal believes he should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Giddings, based on what he's done.
Yeah, we were lucky to have Coach in here with a guy named Shane Foley.
Oh, yeah.
Do I need to tell you who he is?
I've known Shane for many years. I covered him when he was there and at USC, and we're in touch today. So
yeah, so we got a chance to. I just kind of coordinated. I didn't have much to do with it except get them both here at the same time, and they had a great 2-hour interview about a month before Coach's stroke, and then of course Coach never really got back to baseline from the stroke and has passed away last year. So that was special that we got it. Because his memory. Well, I'd never seen a guy talk for 2 hours and never stumble on a name.
It's amazing.
He was remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. The other thing I wanted to do before I let you out of here is I wanted to thank you. You know how much you've personally helped me, and this is a really local story. But you know, I kind of helped with the football program at Harbor. Maybe 7 years ago, I got involved, and I didn't go to Harbor, and there was no one on staff that ever had any Harbor history. And I found you, and you helped me really with the history, and would help me with articles and the program, and you showed me how to actually be like a mini SID within a high school. I mean, you did that for me, by the way.
Oh.
And I took notes, and really your counsel, and then just the output that you could do for me, which really blessed the fans. You know, the parents and the alumni. I mean, the article on Brinkley, the articles on Giddings, just the history of Tarball, the Battle of the Bay, and you are a walking encyclopedia of all that. And I wanted to thank you for that. Segue into this project that I think you're working on. Could you tell us about this Battle of the Bay project? I mean, tell me about that.
The history of the Battle of the Bay.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Wow, what an incredible endeavor this is. You know, or prospecting with interviews, and you know, who we going to reach out to, who we going to talk to. I mean, we can go out and we can get the games off. You know, the past games, but there's so much more to that. There's the stories behind the stories. It's the people. It's the personalities. It's the guys who played in the game, who are 77, 78 years old now, that played in the very first one in 63 and 64, and guys that played in the 70s and in the 80s. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it really is. I mean, they're old guys now. So it's been a fascinating journey, tracking these guys down, interviewing them, reaching out to them, and that's kind of the groundwork that we've been doing really this month, is focusing on just that, planning it out, getting the game plan. I mean, you don't just show up to a football game. It takes months ahead of time of who your personnel is going to be, what your defense is going to look like, what your offense is going to look like, what your game plan is going to be, who can do what, who's fast, who's not fast, who can block, who can't block, who can tackle, who can throw, who can run. I mean, all this, you don't just show up at the stadium at Davidson Field. I mean, these coaches have been dedicated for months leading up to these moments. So there's a lot that goes into it, whether you're a player or a coach, especially a coach, because they dedicate their lives to it. So writing a book like this is similar to that, with your research and going through things and really mapping out what it's going to look like and how you're going to. And things change along the way. I mean, it doesn't always stay. You have to make adjustments. You have to audibilize at the line of scrimmage, and you see a blitz coming. You bark out something else. And like I said in the Super Bowl, the winning play was called corn dog. So, whatever it is, there's got to be a play for us to know at that moment and to adjust. That works best. What works best for the team, family, company? We're writing for the community. And I believe as a sports writer, we want to tell their story. What do they have to say? Some writers write for prestige or write for themselves or write for paper. I personally believe that you should be writing for your community and your people and what they might find intriguing or interesting. Tell the story. Let them tell the story. That's why this is a little bizarre. You're interviewing me, and I'm not used to talking about myself.
I kind of flipped it on you.
Yeah, it's a different world. But this is what I do.
Yeah.
And you're letting me ramble, and which I appreciated. It's great. We get to talk about Press Pass Paradise, which is Paradise being really Newport Beach. That's what, and of course a press pass speaks for itself. And we talk about tennis and we golf, a lot of golf, the water sports capital of the world. I know this is going to be, delayed, but today being Valentine's Day, I met my wife at the golf course. And the headline is, "How can you not be romantic about golf?" And there's a little piece in there about how I met my wife. And I don't know if we have time for this, but ultimately,
I read that.
Okay.
A lot of high-profile names in that chapter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
who are some of them?
Oh, well, endless stream. Jack. Oh my God. Yeah. Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus. Fred Couples, Gary Player, all the top players that would come here to play the Hogue Classic.
All the Toshiba.
All the Toshiba.
Well, it's called Hogue, now,
Hogue,
but it was Toshiba, yeah.
So I'll give you a quick story, and there's a chapter in there. So Jack Nicklaus is making his first appearance. This is 2004. This is 20 years ago. He's making his first appearance in the Toshiba Classic, and it's a big deal. And so I'm the sports editor at the time, and I go out and cover the Toshiba Classic. and where he's being interviewed, and there's a pack of reporters, and you're taking your notes, and so in his interview that day, he was talking about his round, and he said that he played Army golf, not Arnie golf. I put in Arnie golf, like his compatriot Arnold Palmer, Arnie. So a huge mistake and very, very embarrassing. And the next morning, so I apologized to him the next day, and my gosh, this was my chance to meet Jack Nicklaus, but under the circumstances, I didn't want to. He puts his hands on my shoulders and forgave me, thank goodness. But it was the misquote of a career, if you will, saying it's Army golf, not Arnie golf. Because when you play Army golf, it's left, right, left, right. You don't want to do that when you're playing golf. You want to be straight, not left, right, left, right. So that's what he meant. And I, misheard it, but Arnie golf, and made a big mistake with Jack the Golden Bear. My wife said, "Did he bite you at the end of the day?" And so, no, he didn't bite me, the Golden Bear. And I was forgiven, but I'll never forget it. So I thought it was important that I put that in there as a chapter, just to show that while not everything is glamorous, we make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, but sometimes things happen, and I think I have no problem with self-deprecation, and I can go ahead and put that in there. My wife suggested that I do that, so whatever she just suggests, we end up doing anyway. So. Right? That's how we stay married.
Well, Rich, those are great examples of the things I'm talking about. So how do you pick this up? Press Pass Paradise.
Well, it's on Amazon, so you can just go to Amazon or Google Press Pass Paradise on Amazon, and it's in hardcover, paperback, Kindle.
If you live around Orange County, California, it's an enjoyable read.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
so
very much.
If you live outside of Southern California, you might get a peek of what Paradise looks like out here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, our time is closed. I want to thank you, and thanks for being on the other side of this, allowing me to interview you, which I know is awkward for you, but you did a terrific job.
That's it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here, and it's an honor.
I'll see you again.
Thank you.
All right, Rich.
Thank you, Jason. All right.
Great job. Great job.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.